You know that feeling when you realize just one bit of tech kind of quietly shaped so much music.
It really hits you sometimes.
And we've got something special today. This isn't a platinum record, but it's just as important in its own way, the original owner's manual for the LinnDrum.
Right? This little booklet, it was basically the key for countless musicians,
Yeah.
a direct line to making those iconic beats.
Exactly. We're talking about a direct portal into how this thing actually worked, how people used it.
And it's more than just, dry instructions. It's a look into the mindset, the workflow of early digital music.
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty. How did you go from plugging it in to having a whole track laid out? This manual holds the answers.
And looking through it, you see it's structured pretty logically. Takes you from the very start.
Like setting it up.
Yep, setting up, plugging it in, then how to just play the basic sounds, the preset patterns it came with.
Which is cool, but the real magic is making your own stuff, right?
Absolutely. And the manual dives deep into that, creating your
Yeah.
custom patterns, building songs from those patterns.
And it even covers stuff like saving your work onto cassette tape.
Yeah, definitely a blast from the past there,
Yeah.
but crucial back then.
It also covers syncing it up with other gear, changing the actual drum sound.
Right, swapping chips, and even troubleshooting if things went wrong.
So it's not just technical specs, it's really showing the creative path.
Precisely. It laid out the possibilities, how you, the musician, could really shape the sound.
Okay, so here's the mission for this deep dive.
Hmm.
We're going to walk through this manual like we just unboxed a brand new LinnDrum.
From power switch to finished song on tape.
Ready to power up.
Let's do it. So, first step, obviously, is hitting that power switch. Back panel. Simple enough.
And then, gotta hear it right, the manual tells you connect it to an amp or a mixer.
And it gives you options right away. You've got your standard left and right stereo output.
So that overall mix, yeah.
But then, and this is pretty forward-thinking, individual outputs for all 12 drum sounds.
12 separate outs. Wow, that's serious flexibility for mixing later on. EQ, effects on just the snare, just the kick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Showed they were thinking about studio integration from the get-go.
Okay, so output's connected. What about volume?
2 layers, really. There's a master volume knob for the overall level.
Makes sense.
But then on the front panel, you've got this mixer section, sliders for each drum sound.
Ah, so you can balance the drums within the stereo mix right there on the machine?
You got it. The lower row of sliders adjusts the volume for that stereo mix.
And the upper row?
That's for panning, placing each drum left to right in the stereo field, so you could shape the stereo image quite a bit.
That's pretty cool, but those sliders, they only affect the main stereo outs, not the individual ones, right?
Correct. Manual's clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
The individual outs send the raw sound, pre-fader, pre-pan. Understanding that signal path was key.
Gotcha. Okay, powered up, connected, levels starting to make sense. Time to hit some pads. Or buttons in this case.
Right. The drum buttons are there on the lower left. Pretty inviting layout.
And it's not just on-off for every sound, is it?
No, that's one of the first neat things. The snare drum actually has 3 different volume levels you can trigger.
3, okay. Add some dynamics.
And the bass drum, the hi-hat, cabassa, tambourine, ride cymbal, they each have 2 volume levels.
So you can get a bit of accenting going on just by hitting the buttons?
Definitely. And the hi-hats have that nice touch, 2 closed sounds, 1 open.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hit a closed hi-hat right after the open one, it cuts the open sound short.
Like stepping on a real hi-hat pedal?
Exactly. Mimicking that physical interaction. Little details like that show the design intent.
Trying to make it feel more like an instrument, less like just a machine.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then, check this out. Those top 8 drum buttons, they pull double duty.
Oh, yeah.
There's a percussion button. Press that, and suddenly those same 8 buttons trigger a whole different set of percussion sounds, the ones printed just above them.
So you essentially get more sounds without needing more buttons.
Clever. Very. And you could trigger sounds from both sets, the main drums and the percussion at the same time.
Expanding the palette quite a bit. And you could switch into that mode anytime.
Yep. Playing, recording, stopped, didn't matter. More sounds instantly available.
Okay, so we're triggering sounds, maybe different volumes. What about changing the actual tone tuning?
Right. The manual moves on to that. There's a dedicated tuning section.
Yeah.
But not everything is tunable.
Which ones are?
You can tune the snare, the side stick snare, the toms, and the congas.
How much range?
About an octave, give or take,
Yeah.
using the knobs in that section.
Okay, decent range for tailoring those sounds. What else?
The hi-hats have adjustment too, but it's for decay time, not pitch.
Controlling how long the closed hi-hats ring out.
Exactly. For
Ah.
both hi-hat 1 and hi-hat 2. The manual suggests playing with it live while a pattern runs to kind of simulate pedal pressure changes.
Again, chasing that realism. But the kick drum, cymbals, other percussion, fixed pitch.
Fixed pitch, yeah. The manual is clear on that. Probably a limitation of the tech back then.
But that also gave it that LinnDrum sound, didn't it? That specific kick sound everyone recognizes?
Undeniably. Those fixed sounds became part of its signature character.
Okay, explored the sounds, tune what we can, let's make some noise. What about the built-in beats, the presets?
Right, the preset rhythm patterns. The LinnDrum came loaded with 35 of them.
How'd you call them up?
Using those 7 numbered buttons, 1 through 7, in the middle section, you'd punch in a 2-digit code.
Like a secret handshake for beats?
Sort of. All the presets started with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the first digit.
Oh.
So combinations like 11, 24, 35 would call up different preset patterns.
Got it. And you had to be in the right mode for this.
Crucially, yes. There are 2 main modes, pattern mode and song mode. You needed the pattern light to be on to deal with these individual rhythms.
How do you switch?
Dedicated song pattern button. Simple toggle.
And those numbered buttons, they did different things depending on the mode.
Exactly. In pattern mode, they were all about selecting, creating, managing patterns.
So to play preset pattern, say number 11.
Make sure pattern light is on, press 1, then 1 again, then hit the play stop button.
Instant groove.
Pretty much. And play stop again to stop it.
Nice. Could you, like, cue up the next one?
Yeah. Manual mentions that.
Hmm?
While pattern 11 is playing, you could type in 12, and as soon as 11 finishes its loop, 12 kicks right in.
Seamless transitions, like DJing with rhythm patterns.
Kind of, yeah. Very handy for arranging on the fly.
Okay, presets are cool for getting started, but the real fun is making your own beats. How does the manual walk you through that?
All right, creating your own patterns. First, again, make sure you're in pattern mode.
Yeah.
Then you need an empty slot. The manual says patterns starting with a 6 or 7 are usually empty.
How do you know for sure it's empty?
You select it, like 61, and press play stop. If it's empty, you just get a quick single beep, and the display blinks once. No continuous light means it's a blank canvas.
Okay, got my empty pattern 61. Now what? Record.
Yep. Hold down the record button, and while holding it, press play stop.
And that starts a click track.
Exactly. You'll hear metronome clicks, quarter notes with a stronger click on the downbeat every couple of measures to keep you oriented.
And I assume you can set the speed.
Oh yeah, the tempo knob is right there. The manual suggests maybe slowing it down while you record tricky parts, then speeding it up later.
Makes sense. So click is going, I just start hitting the drum buttons in time.
That's it. Just tap the drum buttons when you want them to sound in time with the click. The manual calls it overdubbing because you can layer sounds.
So I can lay down a kick and snare, then go back and add hi-hats.
Precisely. When you're done recording your first pass, or whenever you want to stop recording, just hit play stop again.
And that saves it.
Instantly. Stored right into memory, pattern 61 now has your beat. Even remembers it if you power down.
Nice. Digital memory doing its thing. And to hear it back.
Just press play stop again. No click this time, just your pattern playing.
And if I want to add that hi-hat,
Just repeat the process. Hold record, press play stop. The pattern plays, the click comes back, and you just tap in the hi-hats over the existing beat. It adds them without erasing.
okay, layering sounds pretty straightforward. Now, what about timing? Does it sound exactly like I played it, warts and all?
Here's a key feature. The manual points out that it automatically corrects your timing.
Quantization.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It nudges your button, presses to the nearest 116th note by default. So even if your timing is a little loose, the playback sounds tighter.
Built-in groove fixer. That's handy. But what if I fill up the memory, making lots of complex patterns?
Good question. The manual warns about that. If you run out of memory while recording, the machine stops, the pattern display blinks like crazy, and it starts beeping at you.
The dreaded out-of-memory error. Okay, so that means time to delete something.
Before you do that, though, you might want to check just how much memory is left, or maybe check the tempo you're working at.
How do you check the tempo?
Just hold down the BPM trigger button. The display shows the tempo in beats per minute.
Simple enough. And the memory.
Make sure you're in pattern mode, then just hold down the record button. The other display, the step-tab time one, shows the percentage of memory left. 99 means it's empty.
Okay, useful checks. But let's say I did hit that memory limit. Beeping, flashing lights, got erase. How?
The manual gives you a few ways, all using the erase button, but only when you're in pattern mode.
Okay, what's method 1?
Erase a whole pattern. Hold erase, type the 2-digit pattern number like 61. You get a beep, Pattern 61 is gone.
Simple. What else?
You can erase just one specific drum sound from an entire pattern. Let's say you want to remove all the cowbell hits from pattern 62.
Right.
You type 62, then hold erase, and then press the cowbell button. Beep.
Yeah.
All cowbell hits in 62 are deleted.
Targeted removal. Nice. Can you get even more specific? Like, just erase the cowbell in the second bar.
You can.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. You go into record mode for that pattern, 62, while it's playing back with a click. You hold down the erase button, and then you press the cowbell button only at the moments in the second bar where you want it erased.
Whoa, real-time selective erasing. That's quite detailed editing.
It really is. Gives you fine control. And finally, the nuclear option.
Uh-oh.
Erase everything. All patterns, all songs. Hold erase, then press the load button. Beep. Blank slate.
Yikes. The manual probably warns you to be careful with that one.
Big time. Use with caution.
Okay, so erasing frees up space. But what if I made a great pattern, like 61, and I want to use a variation of it in 62? Copying.
Yep, the manual covers copy Y functions next. Really useful for building variations in longer sequences.
So copy 61 to 62.
First, make sure 62 is empty, erase it if needed. Then, type 61, the source, hold the copy Y button. While holding it, type 62, the destination.
Beep.
Beep!
Yeah.
And now 62 is an identical copy of 61.
Sweet. What about sticking two patterns together, like making a 4-bar loop from two-bar patterns?
Also possible. Let's say you want to append pattern 64 onto the end of 63.
Okay, so 63 will become longer.
Right. You type 63, the destination, the one that gets extended. Hold copy Y. Then type 64, the source, the one being added.
Beep again.
Beep again. Now 63 contains its original content, followed immediately by the content of 64. And 64 itself is unchanged.
That's really handy for building longer phrases. Any other copy tricks?
One more really useful one, doubling the length of a pattern by just repeating it.
So turn a 2-bar loop into a 4-bar loop automatically.
Exactly. Let's say you want to double pattern 65. You type 65, hold copy Y, then type 65 again.
Same number twice.
Yep. Beep. Pattern 65 is now twice as long, just playing its original content twice through. And the manual says you can even do this repeatedly to make it 4 times, 8 times longer.
Wow. Quick way to extend sections. Okay, copying is powerful. What about changing the fundamental length or feel, like time signatures?
Good question. The manual moves into changing pattern length and time signature. This lets you break out of that standard 44 two-measure structure.
So I could make a 34 pattern. Or something weird.
Totally. You enter a special length mode, hold record, then press the length button. The play stop light starts blinking.
Okay, blinking light means length mode.
Right. Then you press play stop again exactly when you want the loop to end and restart. The time between pressing length and pressing play stop defines the new loop length.
Ah, so I could press length, count 1, 2, 3, press play stop, and I'd have a 3-beat loop.
Pretty much, yeah. The manual gives examples like making a 1-measure 34 pattern, or even a pattern that's just 7/18 notes long. Very flexible.
Opens up possibilities for odd meters or shorter phrases. What happens to the notes already in the pattern if I shorten it?
Important point. The manual warns you any notes that fall after your new shorter loop point get chopped off permanently.
Ouch. So measure twice, cut once. Be sure before you change the length.
Definitely. Plan ahead if you're shortening an existing pattern.
Okay, we mentioned that timing correction, the quantization thing earlier. Does the manual go into more detail on that, the error correct?
It does. It gets its own section. It highlights how important it was for getting tight-sounding rhythms, even if your playing wasn't super precise.
And it wasn't just 116th notes, right? There were options.
Lots of options. You could set it to correct to the nearest 18th note, 18th note triplet, 116th note, the default, 116th note triplet, 132nd note, or even 132nd note triplet.
Triplets too, wow. Or you could turn it off completely.
Yep, select the HI setting for high resolution, and it wouldn't correct your timing at all. Raw performance.
How do you change the setting?
When you're about to record, or even on an existing pattern, you hold the error correct button and then press one of the buttons below the setting you want on the panel. The little light above it shows what's selected.
And does it remember that setting for each pattern?
It does, which is pretty smart. If you created pattern 61 with 116th correction and pattern 62 with 18th triplets, when you go back to overdub on 61, it automatically switches back to 116th correction for you. If you go to 62, it switches to 18 triplets.
Keeps things consistent within a pattern. You don't accidentally mess up the feel by having the wrong correction setting active when adding layers.
Exactly. Ensures rhythmic consistency.
Now, beyond just correcting timing, what about deliberately altering the feel? Making it swing or shuffle?
Now you're talking about the timing section. This is where you inject that human feel, moving away from robotic straight time.
Making it groove. How does that work?
A LinnDrum gives you 6 levels of timing adjustment, labeled A through F. A is perfectly straight, and as you go towards F, it introduces more shuffle or swing.
And this applies to different note values.
Yes, you can apply these AF variations to either 18th notes or 116th notes. So you can get 18th note swing, 116th note swing, and various degrees in between.
How do you see what the current setting is?
You press the before-after, error correct, or record button, and the display briefly shows the AF letter, and whether it's for 18 or 116 notes.
And changing it.
You hold the after button, and then press the button below the AF setting you want.
So I could take a straight preset beat and make it swing.
Absolutely. The manual walks you through examples. Take preset #11, straight 18ths, hold after, press F, and suddenly it's shuffling. Hold after, press A, and it's straight again. Same idea for 116th note patterns.
Encourages experimentation to find the right feel for your track. What's this before button do then?
Before is interesting. It lets you apply a timing feel only to the notes you're about to overdub, without changing the timing of the notes already in the pattern.
So I could have a straight hi-hat pattern, then use before with setting C to record a slightly shuffled cabasa part on top of the straight hi-hats.
Exactly that. Layering different feels within the same pattern. Very nuanced control.
It's pretty sophisticated. Do the timing and error correct settings interact?
They do. The manual points out that changing the timing setting, AF, also changes the error correct setting for any future recording on that pattern. They're linked.
Makes sense. If you're adding shuffle, you want the correction to match that feel.
Right. And there's a specific note. If you set error correct to 18th note triplets, the AF timing functions get disabled, because that kind of swing doesn't really apply neatly to triplets.
Good to know. Any other quirks there?
One specific scenario. If a pattern was originally 116th notes, but you want to adjust the 18th note timing feel, AF, you might actually need to manually set the error correct to 18th notes first before the 18th note. Timing adjustment will take effect properly. A bit fiddly, but shows how interconnected it all is.
Definitely need to understand those interactions to really master the feel. Okay, we've got patterns, corrected, grooving. How do we build a song?
All right, constructing songs. The manual explains that a song in the LinnDrum world is basically just a sequence of your pattern numbers.
Like pattern 11 plays twice, then pattern 12 plays 4 times, then back to 11, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Each pattern number in your sequence is called a step in the song.
How do you start building one?
First, make sure you actually got some patterns recorded. Then press the song pattern button to switch into song mode. The step time display lights up and shows 000.
Ready for step 1?
Yep. The manual suggests maybe writing down your desired pattern sequence first. Then you hold the enter button.
Okay.
And while holding it, you type in the 2-digit number for the pattern you want at step 1, then the pattern for step 2, step 3, and so on. The step time display counts up as you add each step.
How many steps can a song have?
Up to 99 steps. Plenty for most arrangements.
So I just keep holding enter and punching in pattern numbers 11, 11, 12, 12, 12, 12, 11.
Exactly. When you've entered the last pattern number for your song,
Then what?
you hold enter one last time and then press the end button.
Enter, then end. Got it. What does that do?
It tells the LinnDrum that's the end of the song sequence. It also deletes any old steps that might have been programmed after your new endpoint. And by default, it makes the song loop back to the beginning automatically after the last step.
So it just repeats forever. What if I want it to stop at the end?
There's an option for that. You hold down the song checks button and press end. That toggles between looping and stopping after the last step. A beep confirms the change.
Handy. And the manual probably warns you to definitely press enter and end when you're done programming.
Oh yeah, crucial step. If you forget, it might keep playing old steps you didn't want after your intended sequence.
Right. So song programmed, end point set. How do I play it?
Make sure you're still in song mode, then just hit play stop.
And play stop again to stop it.
Just like with patterns. Simple playback control.
Okay, but what if I mess up? Or I want to change the arrangement later, editing the song.
Cover in the next section, editing the song. Very important.
How do I see what's in my song?
When you're in song mode, the pattern hashtag display always shows the pattern number assigned to the step shown in the step hashtag display. You use the and or arrow buttons to move between the steps.
So I can step through, see step 1, pattern 11, step 2, pattern 11, step 3, pattern 12, etc.
Precisely. Lets you review the whole structure.
And if I want to change step 3 from pattern 12 to pattern 21?
Use the arrow keys to navigate so the step hashtag display shows 02, the step before the one you want to change. Then just type in the new pattern number, 21. The step hashtag display automatically moves to 03, and the change is made.
So you always edit the step after the one displayed.
Seems like it, yeah. You go to the step before, type the new number, and it replaces the next step's content.
Okay. What about inserting a pattern? Like I want to add pattern 24 between step 8 and step 9.
You use the arrows to get to step 8, the lower of the two steps you want to insert between. Then hold the insert button and type 24.
And everything from step 9 onwards gets pushed up one step?
Exactly. It makes space and shifts everything else automatically.
Cool. Deleting a step, say get rid of step 2 entirely.
Use the arrows to navigate until the step hashtag display shows 02. Then just press the delete button.
And step 3 becomes the new step 2, step 4 becomes step 3, and so on.
Yep, closes the gap automatically, keeps the sequence tight.
Seems pretty flexible for editing. Can you have more than one song saved?
Oh yeah. The LinnDrum could hold up to 49 different songs in memory.
How do you switch between them?
You hold the song hashtag button. The step tag time display briefly shows the current song number. While still holding song hashtag, you type the two-digit number 00-48 of the song you want to load.
And it just defaults to one particular song when you turn it on?
Yep, the manual says it always powers up on song number 11.
Good to know. One last thing on songs. Can I start playback from the middle? Like start from step 15?
You can. Use the arrow buttons to get step hashtag display to show 15. Then hold the insert button and press play stop.
Insert and play stop starts from the displayed step.
Looks like it. Handy for rehearsing specific sections.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive song creation and editing for the time. But 49 songs and whatever pattern memory, eventually you fill it up. What then?
Then you enter the wonderful world of cassette tape storage.
Ah, the good old days. Saving digital data onto analog tape.
It was the standard way back then. The manual explains how to use a regular cassette recorder as external memory.
Not for the sounds themselves, right? Just the pattern and song data?
Exactly, just the sequence data of the programming. But it meant you could save way more than the internal memory held, back things up, or even share your patterns and songs with someone else who had a LinnDrum.
Genius workaround. Did any cassette recorder work?
The manual is quite specific here. It recommends a good quality recorder, AC powered, not batteries ideally, with a monitor or headphone out so you could hear the signal.
What else?
Need a built-in mic and speaker for labeling the takes verbally, a tape counter, and crucially, an auxiliary or line input. Mic-only inputs weren't reliable enough for the data signal. It even recommends a specific superscope model known to work well.
Wow, very specific advice. And connecting it, special cables.
2 good quality patch cords, 14-inch plug for the LinnDrum end, 18-inch mini plug for the cassette recorder end. No adapters. LinnDrum's cassette out goes to recorder's input, recorder's output goes to LinnDrum's cassette in.
Got it. And getting the levels right must have been critical.
Absolutely crucial. The manual gives specific level setting advice for that recommended superscope. For others, it suggests setting playback volume about halfway, tone control to full treble.
How about recording levels?
If the recorder had automatic level control, use that. If manual, set it around 0 dB. And here's a neat trick. The LinnDrum had a function where you press store and it sends out a test tone specifically for setting the recorder's record level accurately before you save the data.
Smart. Helping you avoid bad saves. Okay, level set, connected properly. How do you actually save?
2 main ways. Store everything saves all patterns and songs, but warns you it will replace everything in the LinnDrum when you load it back.
Okay, full backup press store. What's the other way?
Store song saves only the currently selected song and just the patterns used in that song. Less drastic when loading back.
What if I only want to save one pattern?
Clever workaround in the manual. Make a quick song that only uses that one pattern. Put it in step 11 apparently.
Right.
Then use store song.
Ah, okay. So the actual process.
Put in a blank tape. Record your voice saying, LinnDrum Patterns Project X or whatever. Put the recorder in record mode. Wait about 6 seconds for the tape leader to pass. Press store on the LinnDrum. Wait for the store light to go out. Done recording. Rewind to the start of that data tone.
But was it done properly? How do you check?
Verification step. Super important. You press store and load together on the LinnDrum, then press play on the cassette deck.
And watch the lights.
Yep. If any lights on the LinnDrum blink during playback, the save had errors. Try again. If no lights blink, it's probably good.
Okay, save verified. Now, loading it back in later, how does loading a store everything tape work?
Pretty simple. Find the start of the data tone on the tape. Press load on the LinnDrum. Press play on the cassette.
And watch the load light.
Right. If the load light blinks, you've got a tape error during load. If it stays solid, then goes off. Success. But remember, This overwrites everything currently in the LinnDrum.
Got it. What about loading a store song tape? You said that was less drastic?
Yeah, this mode doesn't just wipe everything. It tries to be smarter. It often moves your existing patterns to lower number slots to make room, then clears higher number slots for the patterns coming in from the tape.
So my existing stuff might shift around.
It might, yeah. The song itself loads into whichever song number slot you had selected on the LinnDrum before you started the load. And the pattern numbers within that loaded song might change to reflect their new locations in memory.
Okay, so a bit more complex. How do you do it?
Select the song number you want to load into first. Find the data tone, press load on the LinnDrum, press play on the cassette.
Any specific error warnings here?
Yes, two main ones. If the pattern number display starts blinking fast, it means there isn't enough free pattern memory to load everything from the tape. You'd need to stop, erase some stuff from the LinnDrum, and try loading again.
And the other error?
Same as before. If the load light itself blinks, that's a tape read error. Stop, check connections, levels, maybe clean the tape heads. If the load light goes off cleanly, success. Play the song to check it.
Seems like tape errors were a common headache. Did the manual offer troubleshooting?
Oh yeah, a whole section on eliminating tape errors.
Yeah.
Lists all the likely suspects.
Like?
Bad cables, wrong volume levels. It even suggests tweaking volume during a load attempt while holding load. Dirty tape heads, bad tape, cheap recorder, wrong record level setting, tone control not on full, recorder running on weak batteries.
Covers all the bases. Good
Yeah.
to have that checklist. And play stop on the LinnDrum stops any tape operation immediately.
Yep, your panic button if things go wrong during save or load.
Okay, cassette storage. Fascinatingly complex. What about syncing the LinnDrum to external gear, like a multi-track recorder?
Crucial for studio work back then. Syncing LinnDrum to tape. This lets you perfectly align the LinnDrum with tracks already recorded.
How did it work? Did you need to record a special signal?
Ideally, yes. The best way was if you use a LinnDrum when recording the original tracks, and at the same time, recorded the LinnDrum's special sync tone onto its own separate track on the multi-track tape.
So a two-stage process. Record the first pass with sync tone, then overdub later using that tone.
Exactly. For stage one, recording the initial part in the sync tone, you make sure EXT SYNC on the LinnDrum is off. Connect SYNC OUT to a console input, no noise reduction on that channel.
Right.
Prepare your drum part. Set the record level on the multi-track for the sync tone track to about 9 dB. The LinnDrum outputs a continuous tone while playing, which helps you set this. Then, put the multi-track in record, wait 5 seconds, start the LinnDrum, record both the drums, as a guide maybe, and that sync tone.
Okay, sync tone recorded on its own track. Now, stage 2, overdubbing a new LinnDrum part in sync.
Right. Prepare the new song pattern on the LinnDrum, connect the sync track output from the multi-track recorder back into the LinnDrum's SYNC-IN jack.
Feeding the tone back into the machine.
Precisely. Rewind the multi-track tape to about 5 seconds before the sync tone starts. Now on the LinnDrum, press the EXT SYNC button so its light comes on.
Okay, external sync activated.
Put the multi-track in play. As soon as it starts playing that recorded sync tone, press play stop on the LinnDrum.
And it should lock right in.
If all goes well. Yes. The LinnDrum starts playing its part perfectly synchronized to the tape, driven by that sync tone. Rock solid timing.
That's ingenious. Could that SYNC-IN jack be used for anything else?
The manual mentions you could also use it to drive the LinnDrum's tempo from other external sources, like sequencers, if they put out the right kind of signal, a specific pulse waveform, 24 pulses per quarter note, PPQN.
So different ways to lock it up. Let's look at that rear panel in more detail. What other connections are back there? Rear panel inputs/outputs.
Okay, first up, 5 trigger inputs.
For triggering sounds externally, like with drum pads.
Exactly, or even for audio signals. The manual lists default assignments, snare, high tom, low tom, bass, crash cymbal usually.
We could change those assignments.
Yes. You hold down the drum button you want to assign on the front panel, and then send a trigger signal, like hitting a pad connected, into the trigger input jack you want to use for that sound. It reassigns it.
Flexible. Were they velocity sensitive? Did hitting the pad harder make the sound louder?
No, the manual states they weren't pressure or velocity sensitive, just a simple trigger, same volume each time.
But you could adjust sensitivity to avoid double triggers or missed hits.
Yes. Each of the 5 inputs had its own sensitivity adjustment screw on the back, crucial for getting reliable triggering from pads or audio.
And the manual suggested using this to replace bad drum sounds on tape.
Yeah, kind of a cool idea. Feed the dodgy snare track from your tape into a trigger input assigned to the LinnDrum snare sound, and essentially replace or layer the original with a LinnDrum sound triggered in time.
Clever application. What else is back there? Trigger output?
Right, this sent out a 5-volt pulse to sync other gear to the LinnDrum. External sequencers, synths with trigger inputs.
And you could change what triggers the output pulse.
You could. Programmable. It could send a pulse on every 18th note, 18th triplet, 116th triplet, 116th triplet, 32nd triplet, or even every time the cowbell sound played.
Triggering external gear off the cowbell, that could lead to some interesting polyrhythms.
For sure. You check the current setting by pressing the BPM trigger button. The error-correct lights show the division.
What were some suggested uses?
Syncing a synth arpeggiator to run at 116th notes, triggering a bass synth only on the cowbell hits, stepping an old analog sequencer. Though for sequencers needing really fast pulses, it's suggested using the HI setting or maybe even the tape SYNC out jack for its higher 24 ppqn resolution.
Okay, makes sense. Then we have the audio outputs. We already discussed the individual outs in the main stereo pair. What about control voltage inputs, CV?
2 of those. They accepted a 0.5-volt DC signal.
To control what?
Pitch. One CV input controlled the pitch of the snare and side stick snare together. The other controlled the pitch of the toms and congas together.
So you could plug in a CV pedal.
And do real-time pitch bends on your snares or toms as a whole other layer of expression.
Very cool. And the last jack, remote play stop.
Simple but useful. Just a jack for a standard momentary foot switch, normally open. Lets you start and stop the LinnDrum with your foot. Great for live playing.
Definitely handy. Okay, one last major area, manual covers. Actually changing the sounds inside the machine. Changing drum sounds.
This was a big deal. The manual explains the sounds are digital recordings stored on chips inside.
Integrated circuits.
And while the default sounds were chosen to be popular and useful, we weren't stuck with them. Linn Electronics sold alternate drum sound chips.
Like completely different kicks, snares, percussion.
Exactly. They even had a demo tape or a record called Alternate Drum Sound Chips. You could get to hear the options.
Could the user just swap these chips out easily?
Not quite initially. You needed to get a special changeable socket installed inside your LinnDrum first, usually by a dealer.
Ah, a modification.
Right. But once that socket was installed, then the user could easily pull out the old chip and pop in a new alternate sound chip. Suddenly, your LinnDrum has a whole new sonic identity.
That's amazing customization for the time. Could you get custom sounds made, like from your own recordings?
The manual actually mentions that possibility. It
Yeah.
says custom chips could potentially be made from tape recordings and tells you to contact Linn Electronics directly to discuss it.
Wow. Truly personalizing your drum machine. That's incredibly forward-thinking.
It really was. It speaks volumes about the design philosophy empowering the musician.
And finally, the manual wraps up with the boring but necessary stuff.
The warranty information. Standard 1-year limited warranty for the original buyer, non-transferable, usual conditions about proper use, authorized repairs, void if modified, and the disclaimer about liability.
Gotta have it. Okay. Wow. That was a serious journey through this manual.
It really covers a lot of ground, doesn't it?
So just to recap for everyone listening, we've gone from plugging it in, making basic sounds, using presets,
To the real core, crafting your own patterns, adjusting timing and feel with error correct, and timing functions.
building entire songs step by step, editing those songs.
Then the whole adventure of saving and loading using cassette tapes.
Right. And syncing to tape, using trigger inputs, CV inputs, even swapping out the actual sound chips.
The amount of control and the thoughtful workflow, even with the era's limitations, is just really impressive when you lay it all out.
What's one detail that really jumps out to you now, having gone through it again?
Honestly, the sheer detail and complexity around the cassette tape storage and verification is such a snapshot of the time.
Totally. Recording verbal IDs on the tape.
Setting levels with test tones, the multi-step verification process. It shows the ingenuity needed to make digital storage work with common analog tech. It wasn't plug and play like today. You really had to work with the machine.
Makes you appreciate modern workflows, but also respect the pioneers who navigated that. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
About what?
Like thinking about all those classic tracks, Which ones really leaned into, say, those subtle AF timing adjustments?
Or maybe use some of those rarer alternate sound shifts we talked about.
Exactly. It invites you, the listener, to go back and listen to music made with the LinnDrum with fresh ears. Can you hear these features in action? Can you spot the shuffle or maybe a non-standard tom sound?
It's a great way to connect this technical deep dive back to the actual music it helped create.
Definitely. And exploring this manual, this piece of history, it's just a fantastic reminder, isn't it?
That behind every piece of music tech, there's a story of design choices, limitations, and the creative possibilities they unlock.
Yeah. Looking back at these foundational instruments really gives you an appreciation for how far music creation has come, but also for the sheer brilliance and foresight of those early designers. They really laid the groundwork.